Good evening, Ms. Burgin.
Yes.
The President recently committed 50% of the funds for a heavy rail initiative here between Tampa and Orlando.
Right.
But if we were to get this rail system, we the taxpayers here would either have to pay higher sales tax to fund it, or we'd have to issue some bonds and pay interest. What's your view on that? Should we be burdened with more expense here for this, or could you tell us your position on that, please?
Sure. I'll do it under 1 minute, right? I have under 1 minute to answer that question. There are two separate kinds of transit, which I think are really important to understand. One is the transportation from Orlando to Tampa, and what the legislation was that passed within the Florida House was providing for the infrastructure in the statute to allow for the opportunity for it to actually take place. Not saying that it had to take place, but allowing it for it to be in statute. Therefore, as you know, we received money from the federal government in order to build that. There's a secondary proposition within the county, and that is for a local intermodal system. And I am strongly against that. And there's 3 reasons why I'm against it. One is, as I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, we are one of the third largest unincorporated population density districts in the United States. And Eastern Hillsborough County will not receive any kind of portion of that resource until 2039, I believe is the time. So the average household will spend $75,000, an average household of 4, will spend $75,000 per family for a system that they will never, ever be able to use until 4 years from now. So I'm very much against that. I think it will be damaging for our economy. And I think it will be very difficult for us to be able to sustain that kind of a mass system, knowing that we already lose about $60 billion a year in mass transportation.
So you voted against the rail, or you voted for the rail?
The rail that's coming to Hillsborough County?
The question he asked was, where do you plan to get the other half of the money that the federal government gave? So my question is, did you vote on that, or did you not have a vote on that?
Well, they're actually 2 separate questions.
No. Well, okay, correct. So I guess the question
They are 2 separate. One is that we are not bound to come up with extra resources as a state to pay for the train that's going to go from Orlando to Tampa.
So who pays for that?
Currently, we have statutory ability to continue with the plan. We don't have to raise any taxes. We don't have to raise any taxes right now with that particular resources.
So it's going to run at a deficit? I mean, if you've got half of the
money,
money,
it's not built yet.
Well, I'm just saying, if you've got half of the money and you voted for the infrastructure,
right?
How do you get the other half?
I voted for the statutory infrastructure for it to actually be allowed for the state to put it in. I did not vote for any sales tax increase. I did not vote for any increase whatsoever for tax burdens of the residents of Florida. And until we find a way
well, if you voted for it, how do you plan to? What's your opinion on how to pay for it? If you're saying you want to open the infrastructure plans, it's your own planning. So how do we pay for it?
You know, I think that during this time that we are in right now and the economic challenges that we're having, that the state needs to take a very long look at even implementing, and especially locally, not in favor of any kind of local sales tax to build any kind of a train system until we have those resources.
How do you propose to pay for it? I mean, you're saying let's put it up for discussion, but how do you actually pay for it? You're saying maybe not, later we'll talk about it, but if you're for something, you gotta have some sort of idea of how it's gonna come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Or why would you vote for it? I mean,
well, there are two kinds of systems that we're talking about.
No, I didn't ask you about the second one. We know your position, and I'm against the light rail. Everybody
Right.
here is.
Right.
My question to you was about the rail from Tampa to Orlando. You didn't answer that because I asked you what was your position on that, and you start talking about infrastructure. We know about the infrastructure. We'd like you to tell us, do you want it built? Do you want to have that thing built? And if so, how are you going to pay for
I
it?
don't want to have it built at the
You do not want to have it built?
I don't want to have it built at the detriment or on the backs of our
Okay,
state
so you're
residents.
against it. About bottom line at this point, you voted for you voted for it in the infrastructure stage, but you're against the implementation stage. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that that's necessarily what I would say. There are 2 ways in which you move a piece of legislation forward. Okay, and the reality of it was we already had parts of the fund to build the
Sure.
actual train from Orlando to Tampa. Do I think that a train from Orlando to Tampa is going to solve our transportation problems? No, I do not. I do not think that a train is going to have the kind of ridership that it should have, enabled for it really to able to work and be a real need of transportation that we desperately have in our community, because we do have major transportation needs. I don't think that train is going to solve those problems.
So can we count on you then to use our monies and things for something more friendly to the needs, and that you're basically thinking that this program's a turkey, you're not going to vote for it?
I'll tell you that if it comes up in the statute, just like it did this past session in 2010 that we just left, where they take money from one pot and try to put it into another, just so that we can build a train, I'm definitely against that.
Okay.
And I will be, because I think it's important that, one, we have good local roads, which you and I would both agree.
Yeah.
And two, that I think that that some of the implementation would not be the best for taxpayers of the state of Florida. So, how's that?
How are we on time?
Okay, perfect. I appreciate it. You can visit my website, and please feel free to call me if you have any questions or anything further than